The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
You're listening to the Everyday Therapy Podcast. I'm JC Rader.
And I'm Julianne Schroeder.
And we're therapists bringing you honest conversations around emotional wellness and self-development.
Inspired by our personal experiences in therapy and because of our clients, we realize therapy has so much to offer both on and off the couch. Listen for tips and tools to navigate all the challenges that life throws your way.
To give us feedback on topics and guests, or for more information on our community events, counseling, or online services, contact us at everydaytherapypodcast.com. Hello, let's get right into our sponsors. So thank you so much for supporting us, Lifeologie. And they are in the heart of Dallas and also spreading like wildfire all over the Metroplex. They have offices in Fort Worth, Oak Cliff, Uptown Dallas, Frisco, Cedar Hill, Austin. I can list them all, but we'll stick with that for now. Look them up. So they're a counseling private practice, a group private practice, and they have all different types of counselors with specialties in different areas. And so if you've ever thought about finding a counselor, they have counselors with different expertise and different amounts of training, which means that they have different price ranges. So counseling starts at $35 with them, on up to I think $125 for very experienced counselors. So, but within that, you're going to get a good therapist, and they have times available early morning, late evening, and weekends. So they are so creative. Their motto is out-of-box counselors, out-of-box thinkers, getting, what is the motto, Julie?
We've practiced this so much. It's okay, it's Friday. Creative solutions to stuck problems.
Yes.
But they advertise themselves as out-of-box thinkers.
Yes, thank you.
You were close.
You know, yeah,
you were getting there.
I've only said it 1,000 times. So we love Lifeologie. I was trained there, so I have a heart for them, and they're amazing. If you've ever thought of finding a counselor, wefixbrains.com. Check them out. And yeah.
Yes, and then of course, in speaking about creative solutions to stuck problems, they have really created an incredible school called the Lifeologie Institute for Psychotherapeutic Yoga. So, yes, I did say it.
Yes, it's a mouthful, and you did a good job.
Thank you. We believe in affirmation around here. But the LISP school really merges Eastern and Western approach to healing, integrating the mind and the body. So they are, and it's really cool in this sort of re-emerging state of recreating the program to really target those that are wanting to make a difference in the mental health field, but in a different way. So right now they are offering a 200-hour program in psychotherapeutic yoga, May, for mental health professionals. So
so definitely look into them. And it is Yoga Alliance certified, so you would be trained to teach yoga anywhere, but can also use it with your clients in the room if you don't want to just use talk therapy. So it's amazing. We're both graduates from this program as well. Yeah. So very much support them. And thank you for supporting us. So yeah, let's dive right into our topic today and meet our guest.
Yes, which I am so honored and thankful for her to be here in studio here in Dallas. I had the privilege of meeting Dr. H Falwell at initially it was the Embody Love Movement screening, and then we ran into each other at another training, right?
I think we did, because I was thinking about this before coming on, that we randomly met at an event and I think exchanged cards and then sort of struck up a friendship from there.
Yes. And, Sally, I think it's best for others to really share and introduce themselves. You have a lot of experience and knowledge, but can you just share with the listeners exactly who you are and a little bit how you got on your way to be there?
Sure. So I'm a Dallas native and am a really good friend. So I also am
what we're talking about today.
Hence what we're talking about. I am a licensed psychologist and made my way to that space through a high school elective that really grabbed my attention, and took that through grad school. I currently have a private practice where I spend my time is with adults who are going through major life transitions. A lot of times that's a grief and loss, or a big surprise, or a big disappointment. It might be divorce or infidelity, but anywhere from 18 to up through 60s and 70s are the clients that I see. I am a wife and a mother and have a good set of friends throughout a couple of different states in the United States. So I really have a heart for the topic of female friendship, but adult friendship, because it's a really challenging area of moving through different decades of our life. Does that give you a good background?
Yeah. I'm curious for you, do you have like a personal story to why adult friendship was like difficult for you, or you have a heart for it?
A lot of it, I haven't found adult friendship hard for me, but I had to work a lot on some individual stuff because I'm more introverted, and it was really hard for me to learn how to find a friend inside of a room and kind of not stay stuck inside of who I was. And so I had to do myself some favors in order to get there. And once I got good at that, there's a story behind that. I can tell when we talked too that a friend really helped me with who didn't struggle with that kind of stuff. I actually texted her. I would be on. I'm like, I'm going to tell our story of how we met. So, but I also see it in a lot of clients that if we don't foster friendships, we end up in spaces in those major life changes, and there's a lot of loneliness and there's a lot of isolation. And it's a prime time for needing help, and the help that fits you the best. But if you haven't found the people that are able to do that, which means you're probably doing it for them too, then it's an added task for that difficult time. It's like, I need support, and where do I go get it? And then you have to go try to get it.
Yes, that's such a good point, that like when you really need the friendship, if you don't already have it, like that's just another layered piece of it that makes it like that moment so much harder.
Yeah, and if you have a personality type that makes you, I guess, more inclined to be cautious in how you get to know people, right? And then to navigate how you do that as an adult. I mean, I'm just thinking, as kids, it's so easy to make friends, right?
Oh, it is.
Like you just go outside in sandbox and hey, you want to be my friend? But it's so not the case as an adult.
One of the things that I describe to people who ask me about friendships, but also to clients, is life kind of puts us in a position to make friends. Like the structure is there with school. And from the very beginning, we work through our days with a whole group of people, and inside of that find who fits and who plays what we play and who likes the colors we like and who we're similar to, or we play on the same team sports, or our families are friends, but so the kids go to school together. School and church are areas I found that people really pull friendships from. And yet, big transition going to college, yet still school, and you can kind of pull from a whole host of people. But after graduating, things take a right turn, and there's making friends at work, and that's a different thing. There's making friends in parenthood, and that's a different thing from the smoothness of like, here's the structure, I'll give it to you, and then just we make friends inside of that. I think that's one of the things that makes adult friendships the hardest, is you have to go and make your own structure.
Yeah, and I feel like we're such communal beings, just primitively thinking about how villages and community was such an integrated part of our lives, and now we are more disconnected and just more individual and autonomous, I guess. And that's, I don't know, looked highly upon in our culture in a way.
Yeah, to be seen as more independent. Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I will speak personally. I know that when I had a transition in my life where the structure wasn't like put in place, that, I did judge myself for being so, like, I felt needy because I was like, oh, I don't have the support system. But I mean, we are inclined to want to connect.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like the clients that you see, if you see the judgment in the difficulties of navigating adult friendship, thinking that they're somehow doing it wrong, when really it's about looking at, just like, I guess, the structure not being in place.
There is that. There's kind of I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. And that is like they get stuck there. And that's, to me, one of the hardest parts about friendships is you have to work your own system and make that structure in multiple places, because if you think about it, school was multifaceted too, and there was art class, and there was the class that you went through the day with, or once you started choosing electives, you're getting around maybe similar people. So I think as adults we get a little bit scared about creating our structure, and we're more aware of something that may not work, or how something, we judge it before it'll occur.
Yeah, I can see there being like such a fear of like failure, or like somebody not liking me, or like you're saying the self-judgment of like, I try and be friends with somebody, and what if I'm awkward, or is there something wrong with me that I like can't make friends? I don't know, I feel like so much would come up around this subject.
So that makes me think of the story about the friend that I texted. This friend's name is Slayton, and I met her when I was in early 20s, and I had already been told in college I was part of a friend group, I was part of a sorority, so I had a friend base, but even learned later that because of that introversion on my part, that I can come across as a little bit cool, not like super cool, not even that is super cool, but cold and hard to get to know, because my natural state is not bubbly and interactive, and I hadn't worked my way out of that, hadn't found a way to be comfortable in my own skin. So once I met Slayton, I was in my 20s, and I got some of the best advice from her that I give to clients now, that I talk about. She described to me when she transferred colleges that she was in a room where, like, signing up for her classes and getting registered, and I was so curious about, especially transferring, she hadn't had it was brand new structure, so it's still there, but brand new. And I was like, what did you do? Like, how did you meet people? And she told me that her way of going about making friends when she didn't have any was to find the one person in the room that isn't talking to anyone. And for me, that registered with me, like, I can do that. I don't have to survey the whole room and find something that's interesting to me, but I can make it a task that is doable. I have used that over and over and over again. It doesn't mean that someone, like a friendship blossoms, but it gave me some traction inside of what I was capable of, and could work that into a small thing that would make just even that event that I was at a little bit better. So the more I did that, the easier it got. So I still thank her to that day.
Yeah.
But we also laughed that when I texted her, I was beyond in here and tell her story. I was like, I'm going to tell him that, remember you thought I was weird and hard to get to know?
Yes. And I think so many people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yes, which, I mean, I think, it's important to be aware of how we come off and present ourselves, and also the assumptions we make of others that prevent us from connecting, right? But I mean, I have to laugh because I've shared this story before, but I didn't think our love stories. I didn't think she liked me. So we met in grad school, And so it's just, she was integrated in her life, right? And didn't really need to be scoping out, trying to make friends, where I was in a different position.
Julian was on the prowl. She was looking for friends.
Who will be my friend?
Yeah.
So I interpreted her not necessarily going out of her way to like keep conversation, or like to make an effort to like approach me or keep the conversation going as her being disinterested. But then
and you kept pursuing me, and look where we are now, 5 years later.
Good for you. We will be friends.
Yes, we will. And I feel like it just reminds me it is such a process, and like what you were sharing, that the goal is not necessarily like make a new friend, but like connection, and maybe like through the process you do make a new friend or network in some way. Like it doesn't, like the end goal I feel like trips people up.
Well, and one thing I think about that is that we have this assumption that we're meant to be friends with everybody, and we're not.
Yes.
We naturally fit with some types of people and have trouble with others based upon our personalities or our histories or who we are, just naturally how we like to exist. And one thing I'd like to say about that is because it takes some of the pressure off of, like, I don't have to develop a friendship with everybody, but I can be kind to anybody. And that's a launching space too, just like it is to walk into a room and find someone that is not speaking to another person and like, oh, okay, I can make a connection there. That you can take someone and just start with a kind hello, and then it might be another kind hello, or how are you doing, or, and that's, to me, is how people get to know each other. You might see each other at work, or mom's picking up kids at school, or you go visit the same coffee shop. Some of the, I vowed not to get too researchy on this topic, but
We like some research.
Yeah.
Sure.
I had found some interesting information about, because I have an interest in this topic, that and why it's so difficult to make friends and why the structure in place makes a big difference, is that it takes up to 200 hours to have what we would probably all consider like a good close friend.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe not a
I
best
love
friend.
this. This is so helpful to know, because I think a lot of clients are like, well, what's normal? What's the normal process? To have so, a kind of concrete sort of example of this is what you can expect.
200 hours though, that's a lot.
Yes.
The one thing
a
that,
big investment.
yes, big investment, and also reflects back why it's hard to make friends and why things seem so surface to begin with, because that's how we start. The one thing that changes that 200 hours and shortens or lessens the amount is the depth at which the information is shared.
Okay.
So if you go along for a long time with, I'm fine, things are great, because we all know fine is extremely relative, but it's the natural answer that we give. There is no me to get to know when I say that I'm fine all the time. But the counter, like the other side of that coin, is that I have to choose to be vulnerable about who I am. And then the part of that is the person trustworthy? And there's a process that individually we have to go through. So my walking into a room, picking someone to talk to, that person could easily turn around and their best friend be right behind them, and I didn't see it, and then I feel small and stupid, and why did I try, and see, it never works. And yet I want to be vulnerable enough to try, because, and then not stop, because if that person turns away, then there's another person. I am guaranteed every time. That's why I say I've used that piece of advice so much, because I have never been in a place where every single person is occupied but me. So that's a little bit of like concrete kind of studied information.
It's like a simple step to use. It reminds me of, we've talked about this once before on the podcast, and maybe y'all can help me tell it, but Albert Ellis, the psychiatrist who came up with the REBT theory, one of the ways that he went on dates with people, because he had social anxiety that was just really bad and really wanted a girlfriend, poor thing, you know? And so he went out and asked 100 different women, just random women, for their phone number to take them out on a date. And I think it like 10% success rate, something like that. And so it goes back to that 200 hours. So maybe it wasn't 200 hours, but 100 different people until he like found somebody who was open.
Yeah, the willingness to put forth the practice, but then also entertain like the vulnerability and rejection and learning not to personalize it, right?
Yes.
Well, when I think about some of the this area that's of interest to me, speaking of rejection, I read a wonderful book, I think, on rejection that was recommended by a friend. But getting to a place personally where you understand rejection is just an opinion. That's all it is. And there are only so many opinions that you will get to before there is a favorable answer. And we don't know what is behind another person's opinion. Maybe they're in a hurry, or maybe they don't want a new friend, or all number of reasons. Maybe they're awkward, and then it's that contagion of I'm awkward, you're awkward, and now we're all awkward and we don't know what to do. But the idea that we can take someone's rejection and it not sink fully in, kind of like if I'm try with someone and they turn away, I'm like, well, that's just a situation. That's not necessarily about me. But that speaks to the individual growth that like I had to do to get to a space where I didn't internalize every single thing that happened in the process of making a friend.
Yes, I love that. Like not taking things so personally.
One of the 4 agreements.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you work with clients through that rejection? Because I mean, it is so painful, right? And doesn't it stimulate the same part in the brain that like physical pain?
It does.
Right.
It does. Fortunately and unfortunately, one of the best ways to work through rejection is to practice it. And so the more I know, and that's why I say it's like fortunate.
Yes, and then also I'm like, oh, really? That's the only way. That's all you've got, Sally. Do you want to try again?
And we wish there was some equation that would work, that if I acted this way or looked this way or fixed myself in this way, that it would, sometimes I use the equation y equals mx plus b from school, and we treat ourselves as people like we're an equation and it's y equals mx plus b, solve for x. And if I can solve for x, then I have this, and I can make a friend here and nobody will reject me. And that's not the way other humans work. It's not a great way to treat yourself as an equation, because then you become a project and you become a thing that needs editing and changing. But working with rejection as an opinion, it takes some internal wherewithal. So the way that I work with clients through it is first just kind of working on the periphery of, are you willing to take some steps to get that practice? And choosing ways to do that they are willing to, instead of it being my assignment, because I might choose something completely different than what they're comfortable with. So there's a sense of control of, well, I'm willing to XYZ and try that a few times, because that's what begins to change our experience of rejection, and then also being to talk about it, because it does hurt. I mean, there's no black or white, like take it personally or don't take it personally. You just get better at how quickly you move through the taking it personally. At least I do. So.
Yes. I think that's so true, especially with anxiety. Avoidance perpetuates anxiety. So same with rejection. It, I'm sure, makes that feeling even deeper and harder to feel. But if you're practicing it, it's like, bring it on.
And some of the easiest ways to do that is to work with strangers. So if I was to practice talking to like a stranger going into an event, but you can do that to the barista who's making your coffee, or someone at a checkout counter, or a new person that you see, and you practice this tiny thing that you're trying to get a little bit better at. And I take that pretty seriously in my own life because I had to do it. So understanding, like, it's not just rejection is just an opinion. Yeah. It's a real experience that we all have to go through in different areas of our life, not just rejection of, oh yeah, I had to go get good at that. Didn't just happen.
Yeah. It seems like you kind of have a structure that you help people like develop to find friends. Is that right? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well,
system?
I would say, dependent upon the client, that we kind of look at what resources are already there.
Okay.
And there's some structure either through work or through groups that they're involved in or things that they're interested in, because we can feel like we're starting completely at square one. But that's not really true. We are around people all the time, and yet kind of wait grumpily and impatiently for someone to be friends with, and yet it takes some active work in those spots. So depending upon the client, we might talk through some of the ideas of like, well, what would be interesting to you and where would you like to start? Another thing that I like to do both in my own life and with clients that I work with is to take the like bright shining light off of the loneliness or the wanting to make friends and look at developing certain somethings like a hobby that is they're working the hobby without the stare down of I need to develop friends. So they put themselves in a natural situation where it's not like a homework assignment to go meet a friend, because that can be really, really hard. But it becomes more of, well, what else would you like to do while you wait for a friendship to develop? And that is kind of in through the side window instead of like a strong knock at the front door of like, I really need to work on, building my support system and making friends, because they land, or myself included, we land in places that are of natural interest and people available to be friends with. So I was just thinking of an example that I recently joined a Toastmasters group because I found in my own introversion, even though I've been in my profession for years, that public speaking was something I really wanted to work on. In the moment, I would be okay, but leading up to it, it was like sweaty pits and hand wringing and like, And that I'm building on that 200 hours. It's probably no one in there is going to be my best friend, but I have a great time every week meeting this group of people who are similar interest is getting better at public speaking, but I'm getting to know them in the process, and it expands my space in life so that I'm not just friends with this tiny group of people where I feel super comfortable. It's a mix of individuals, which we all benefit from when we're not so, are we the same? Okay, then we can be friends. Are we the same? Okay, then we can be friends. Because there's a whole host of really interesting, beautiful, engaging people out there. And if we can work from a space of mutual interest, that's kind of a sideways entry into a friendship as well.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that relieves the pressure of the outcome, but then also you're going to feel more at ease and not overthink and, and the anxiety about how do I make this happen then subsides, right? So we're talking a lot about like initiating adult friendships. I wonder if it'd be okay if we move into kind of, I guess, challenges in maintaining and what you see come up for clients in maintaining adult friendships and what I guess other sort of things that pop up.
The first thing that comes to mind is when something gets off the ground. I guess it lands us back in the rejection topic, but I had this picture that I once saw. I don't know where it was from, but from a children's book, and the statement that the child made was, if you ask someone to be friends and they say no, ask someone else. And I think the girl's like Tiffany, age 4. I actually put that up for like as a resource for clients. I took a picture because I put it in a frame and I have it on a bookshelf. And some of the things that I think we add to friendship that makes it difficult is the pressure that we put on people to meet our needs. And so with clients, but also with myself, I think about what kind of friend am I? And that, even when I think the thought, it sort of perks me up in a sense, like, ooh, that gives me some things to think about, because we are all wanting a very similar type of friend. We want someone who's there for us and loyal and understands how to treat us when we're having a hard time, knows what we like. And yet many times we behave in ways that are not friendly towards other people. So we might gossip. That's a really big one. And if I'm a friend that gossips, I immediately put something that I bring to the table in between me and another person feeling comfortable with me, even if they don't have the full-on knowledge that that's a way that I operate. We also try to kind of work around, like, oh, I don't do that. But in a sense, we all do, because it's extremely easy to talk about someone rather than to them. And so that's one thing that comes to mind, is working through the question, like, what kind of friend am I? Because there's so many different qualities that we can bring with, well, am I a bossy friend? Am I a controlling friend? Am I a late friend? That would be
me too, actually.
And knowing that can frustrate, different things can frustrate people. Am I a flaky friend? Do I make an appointment and then last minute cancel it, and other people have adjusted their timetable, and then I send a message that my priority is my priority, and it really, like, what you're doing and what we agreed to is just down on the list. So that is very much a more uncomfortable place to be thinking about friendships, instead of, well, what can you do and where can you go to make friends, but more of what kind of friend are you and what do you bring to the table that might be impeding your own progress. So it takes it kind of from looking at other people and how they need to meet a need, and more on, well, how can I be a better friend? Because without even trying, the healthier I get, the stronger I get, the kinder I get, without even trying, I will attract people to me.
No, I love that. I think it's so necessary to do like an honest reality check, right? And being able to look at yourself, because, I'm thinking of, I guess, some clients that I work with, and, I can relate to, that people pleasing, like, okay, well, I've flaked on people because I've overcommitted, right? And so being able to do that work of, okay, if I get annoyed when other people do that, well, ooh, let's look how I'm showing up, right? But, and the willingness to work on that, to be able to, draw, like you said, draw in those people. But that there has to first be, I guess, a willingness to look at self.
Another thing I think about is we've all been hurt by friends and extended trust, and that was broken even early on. And it is necessary to clean that up so that when I'm trying to make a friend, I don't bring that pain and the protection and put it between you and I as we try to get to know each other. Not only is it just straight out not fair, but if I really do have a goal of growing connectedness and like not having all my friendships take 200 hours, then I have to heal from how people have hurt me, and also acknowledge the reality that people will hurt me. It's not going to stop, that I will continue to have flaky friends or late friends or friends that miss things about me that might be important. So that's another thing I think about that can just come in the process and be a real hurdle to jump, is what's your experience with friendship, and how is that molding your interaction with other people? Because pain can make us exclusive, and so we're, as much as we are scrambling to feel tight with other people, while we're doing that, we're leaving someone else out who might be looking for They may be new to town, and like, who do I know? What do I do? And that, I think that's harder through adulthood too. If like we find our little band of people and don't adventure outside of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that, like you said previously, it can be so rich to be around people who are different from us and disagree with us.
Yeah. I came across this idea for a party that was really fun, but to get outside the comfort zone, especially as adults when we're kind of, have our set of friends. So they have what's called a stranger party. You could retitle it. I think it's
stranger danger kind of reminds. It's scary.
But the notion is that if everybody that shows up brings a partner who nobody else knows. Well, which, it might get a little tricky.
Yeah.
But just that idea of, okay, bring somebody into the circle that hasn't, that you don't know.
Yes, I love that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because I've loved being able to meet your friends that, I wouldn't have, and, vice versa.
Definitely. Right? Yeah, no, I love it. Let's do that. Everyday therapy, stranger danger, drop the danger party.
Stranger danger, please come.
Yeah. But, okay, so what you're saying is, though, remain open to meeting others. That would be something that you work with your clients on, and understanding what has caused them hurt, to keep them kind of in their same sort of ways of operating.
Yeah, I don't know if you can relate to this at all, Julian or Sally, but I've noticed recently, because we have a really great group of like friends from like our mid-20s, and everybody right now is like in dating and relationships, busy in their career, having babies. And so the dynamic totally shifts in the relationship, where once we were attached at the hip, to somebody, and now, so that like expectation, I guess, comes in for me a lot of like, but I expected you to call me every day, or to, spend more time with me. And so there can be that like hurt and loneliness in that transition.
Sure.
I don't know, have you found that at all?
Yes, you're so right about that. I think of that in terms of friendships having seasons, and depending upon where we are in life and location too, because some people have a great skill at keeping in touch and some people don't. And so you take a major life change like graduating from college, or getting married, or having children, that it shifts us. Our world expands, but we're not naturally inside of a situation that we used to be in. We're like, oh, we went to class together all the time, and then so when someone gets married, then there's the spouse and the spouse's family, and then how they spend holidays, and like we're constantly in a state of change, and we can go through a season without even wanting that to occur, just based upon some of the other things that we do want to include in our lives. That can be a lot. There can be a lot of pain and grief in that, and some friendships kind of die out in a sense, like they were meant to be for a certain time, and then others make small adjustments, others make big adjustments to what that change might be. And yet there's really no way to tell, because we can make adamant vows about we'll always be friends, but that isn't necessarily true, and we don't know that. It doesn't mean you can't proclaim that, but it is about that openness of holding something very loosely and not in like a death grip. And things move in and out of our lives, sometimes because we need them to, and sometimes because it happens to us.
Yeah, it feels, when you explain it in that way, it feels a lot less personal and just kind of normal transition and season of life. I really want to go over the handout.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you share that with our listeners?
So you had asked me about any resources that I found helpful, and I was a little like sad and kind of disillusioned, because I haven't found many great resources on friendships, and the books that I have read have almost all been a letdown. And they
Sounds like
just-
an opportunity for you to write a book. Just saying.
Add to your to-do list.
the one book that I like, I just, in fact, posted it on my Instagram account because I was like, I need to get that book out, is, let me see that, but it's called The Art of Friendship.
Okay.
And it is by the Horchows, which they're not psychologists. They don't do research. I believe they're in design, and so I don't want to misspeak about them, but it's 70 ideas about how, like, the artfulness that goes into being a friend. So I thought about if it would be okay with y'all. Like, I really love gift giving, and if like 3 of your listeners want a free book, or what, like, I'll send them a free book if they
I love
like
that.
post something, or like if you want to put some criteria
Yeah,
around
do
it.
a giveaway.
Wait,
That
okay.
would be amazing.
Yeah, so let's do a giveaway.
Okay.
So that's one resource that I really like, despite many people's effort to get ideas around adult friendship. So I brought my own resource.
Yes.
I thought I'd give the Horchows a nod. And then I had a long time ago started to understand the way that I enjoyed people in my life and loved having good friends inside of a target. So I would think of an archery target where the very middle holds very few people. And I think we all desire comfort and connection to people who just like know us, and maybe we have a history, maybe we don't, depends on how long it is. But your 200-hour people, like, it's gone way beyond 200 hours, or the depth is a lot for those few amount of people. And then moving outward from there is like a close friend, and then maybe just someone you would count as a friend, and then maybe an acquaintance, and then I like that very outward part of the target I think of as a stranger or no relationship, because I do believe inside of this target that it allowed me the flexibility to understand that people can be in different places in my life, that it's not you go in this like basket or container and you go in that, like, we're close, or we're school friends, or we're
more fluid.
It's more fluid. And my experiences with people bring them closer in to part of what's sensitive and open for me, and then going through seasons can move people further out. So that's the handout that I have. I also can give a link to that so people can use it.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know, does that give a good explanation of it?
Yeah. It seems like there's different levels of friendship, and really trying to understand that, and like where to kind of like see people in that target to like help, I don't know, just understand friendship a little bit better.
And where it helped me when I worked through it, and part of the handout I put like working it as an actual exercise to put names in the different areas where I would put them. Some I was sad about having moved them further out, sad about, one of the things I work in friendships is, and that there's a sheet in the handout of questioning, like, where am I trying too hard? Where am I like pressing someone because like they seem like they'd be a great friend, or like, and it's just not working the way, and like all my efforts, and it's stirring up my anxiety, and it's stirring up my like the emptiness and the loneliness. So I stay in a position of pain based on just trying to get this person to be my friend. So that just some reflective questions of like, where do people belong, and like, what am I doing to myself inside of trying to make friends?
Yeah. I love that. And then, hopefully help can hone in on the quality of the friendships and like how much energy you want to invest in that and what you don't want to. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And you, oh my goodness, you have so much to offer. We are out of time for today.
I wish we had more time.
Yeah. But before we go, can you share where listeners can connect and work with you and all that good stuff?
Sure. You can find me, I like social media wise, I'm not proficient at very much, but stay mainly on Instagram. And that is at Dr. Sally Falwell. And then you can find me on my website, which the name of my business is Legacy, because I believe in the legacy that we get from other people, but that also we're handing down. And so my website is legacyacc.com.
Perfect. And we'll link all that in our show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today and talking about friendship. And I feel like we went deep, so we're working on our 200 hours.
Yeah.
Y'all have already started.
Yes.
we
Thank
are.
you so much.
Yes,
and
I
stay
loved
tuned for the giveaway.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Everyday Therapy Podcast. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes and share with your friends. It really helps us reach more people.
We might only record once a week, but we're with you every day.